All right, David Blount joins us. Senator David Blount. He represents District 29. He is chair of the Senate Gaming Committee. He is co-chair of the Senate Education Committee as well. Good morning, Mr. Senator.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I've got you loud and clear. Appreciate some of your time this morning. You and I have communicated a little bit, and I appreciate you being willing to visit with us this morning. There's been so much conversation about tax reform in this legislative session, but much of the conversation has centered around a House bill or a Senate bill, and ultimately the elimination of the state income tax. 2 days ago, I was in the gallery in the Senate. It's the first time I'd been there. And got to watch some of the floor debate, part of which was you speaking out against the passage of the amended Senate bill that would ultimately lead, assuming triggers are in place, to the elimination of state income tax. Give me a high-level reasoning for why you are against the elimination of the state income tax, or at least the bill as it stands.
I believe a lot of Mississippians in both parties believe that eliminating the income tax, especially eliminating it right now, is a bad idea. There are three things that have been going on in Mississippi in the last few years. Number one, we all know that our state was propped up by an unprecedented amount of federal spending. During COVID, during the prior presidential administration, Mississippi got an unprecedented amount of money, and that money's going away. And we're going to have to live within our means like we always did before that. I've served under three governors. Twice, Governor Barber was forced to make cuts in the middle of the year because the money wasn't coming in. Twice, Governor Blount was forced to make cuts in the middle of the year because the money wasn't coming in. And I think our economy is going to get back to historically where it's always been. I think we're making progress. But this federal money that we got during COVID and the American Rescue Plan and all the rest of it is going away. It's one-time money. Secondly, there is unprecedented, I think anybody would agree with me on this, uncertainty about what the federal government is going to do, whether the departments are going to exist, whether things are going to change. 40% of our budget comes from Washington. We get more than $12 billion a year. They're talking about making cuts to Medicaid. They're talking about block-grading Medicaid up there. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm not in Washington. But we get $6 billion a year for the Medicaid program. If the match for Medicaid reduced by 1 percentage point, that's $80 million that the state will have to come up with.
Right.
We get $800 million a year for the Department of Education. What's going to happen to the Department of Education? I don't know. So you have uncertainty about what's going to happen with Congress and the government of Washington. And thirdly, I think we all know, we saw just the Federal Reserve this week said that we're entering an increased period of uncertainty with regard to our economy, the economy of the country. We don't know what's going to happen with tariffs. The Federal Reserve said just this week that they anticipate unemployment to rise, they anticipate inflation to go up. It's just an uncertain economic time. And this is not the time to make major radical changes to your tax structure when you're talking about 1/3 of the overall general fund budget. It's not the right time, and I think it's something that we should be cautious about.
All right, so let's walk through those. I don't disagree with you on the first point that you made about the fact that we don't know exactly what federal money coming to Mississippi is going to look like in a post-COVID era that's now, I mean, the spigot has been wide open. It was wide open during the time in which President Biden was in office. It was like they couldn't hand out money fast enough, and that does appear to be changing. So, yes, I would agree with you that there is uncertainty on that point. On the point of the changes that are happening in the government, even if departments go away, if the Department of Education goes away, if there are changes to Medicaid, that doesn't mean the money's going to stop, though. Doesn't it just mean that the money's going to be distributed in a different way?
I don't know. I don't think you know. I don't think our congressmen know. I think if you ask anybody in Washington right now, they'll tell you this is very much in flux, and the details have not been worked out. And is Medicaid going to be cut? Is Medicaid going to be sitting in a block grant to the state? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that. And these are major programs involving 40% of our budget. So look, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if I'm going to think it's a good idea or not. Maybe you think it's going to be. But the fact is, none of us know right now when we're supposed to have a budget in 2 weeks.
But do you, at the same time, live in fear because of the unknown forever?
No, but I don't want to make changes to our tax structure that could eliminate 1/3 of our revenue when I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think that's cautious. I don't think that's the right thing we could do. Because if you eliminate the income tax, to restore an income tax is a 3/5 vote of the legislature. And things may happen in next month, things may happen in 6 months, things may happen in a year. And if you are on a track by law that eliminate 1/3 of your budget, you'll never get it back. And you may end up with a lot of expenses that you didn't know about when you passed that bill.
So you actually said something that struck me as really interesting in the debate when you were taking questions the other day. There was a senator that asked you about your position on Medicaid, in which a year ago you were for expansion of Medicaid, and there were Republican senators that were for that as well. But we knew at the time that there was a possibility that was going to end up costing the state of Mississippi a lot of money down the line because of the uncertainty of the future of how the federal government was going to reimburse Medicaid to the states. You were for that at the time. You did say that you thought this year was not the time to do it because of the uncertainty. Why the change? There was uncertainty a year ago. There certainly is uncertainty now. Why were you for it then, not for it now?
Well, I'll say what happened a year ago before the presidential election. We didn't know who was going to be president. We had a Medicaid program that has been largely the same for 60 years, longer than I've been alive. We have an expansion program that had been the law for more than 10 years and had been adopted by 40 states, many of those states Republican states. What's being discussed right now after the election, when we know that we have a different president, is the program may be changed more than it's ever been changed in 60 years. So that's just traditional Medicaid, which could increase the cost to the state. With regard to expansion, what's being discussed is reducing or even eliminating the match money for that expansion population. That was not being discussed even 2 months ago, but it is being discussed now. And so for that reason, and I was asked that question by Senator Fillingham, for that reason, I do think it's rise to pause right now because if the Congress passes a bill that says we're not going to give you a 9-to-1 match that has been the law of the land for more than a decade, and we're not going to do that anymore, that has to influence our decisions. Absolutely it does. But we had a law under multiple presidents for more than a decade from both parties that said we'll give you a 9-to-1 match. That was the situation last year, and I thought it was a good deal. We should take it. Right now, just in the last month or so, they're talking about ending that match, and that has to change our calculation, and that's my point.
But if we had expanded
right now about how this is all going to work,
if we had gone the route of expansion a year ago, wouldn't we be in the exact same spot where we're sitting here with a ton of uncertainty about, okay, if they change it, we're on the hook for what we agreed to a year ago?
That's right. And if we had, then the Speaker of the House, who was a strong proponent of expansion, and the Lieutenant Governor who supported expansion, and the overwhelming majority of Republican legislators who voted for expansion would be talking to our congressmen and senators saying, you made us a deal and now you're going to change it. I think that just like there are lots of red states that would be in that situation if that changed right now.
Senator Blount, we're up against the break. You got time to hang with me for a few more minutes?
Happy to.
Senator David Blount joining us this morning, represents District 29. That is primarily Hinds County. We've got a quick time out. We're back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. A significant vote in the Senate 2 days ago that keeps the possibility of major tax reform alive in both chambers, and that negotiation is going on. We're visiting with Senator David Blount. He represents District 29. He voted against the Senate amendment yesterday. I was thinking a bit during the break, and I'm curious. You said this is not the right time to vote for basically the elimination of revenue. A third of the revenue in the state of Mississippi is what this eventually what this bill would do. Is there a time where you would be for the elimination of the state income tax?
No. I think there is a disagreement, and if we're going to have a tax cut, whether we should have an income tax cut or a grocery tax cut. If both those, hypothetically, if both those amounts were the same, which one is preferable? Different people can have different ideas about that. I personally prefer a grocery tax cut.
But there is a grocery tax cut in this bill also.
There is, which just increases the hit on the general fund. I'm not in favor of reducing the income tax. Mississippi has one of the lowest income taxes in the nation of the more than 40 states that have an income tax. And I think we need a balanced source of revenue in the state. Some of that comes from income, some of that comes from sales tax, some of it comes from other taxes. So I think eliminating income tax is a bad idea.
All right. So I just want to be clear on this. So a second ago you said you were against the elimination of the income tax in this bill because of the timing of it and the uncertainty going forward, but now you say you're actually just against the elimination of income tax, period.
I'm against the elimination of the income tax. But what I hear from many of the Republican members that I serve with, who I speak with, say, who would disagree with me on that, who would be in favor of eliminating the income tax, are concerned about the timing of this. They may disagree with me on which tax cut is preferable. But I think anybody would recognize that we are still on the tail end of unprecedented federal spending, that we've got unprecedented uncertainty in Washington, and treacherous economic times ahead. And I think for that reason, some of those people are going to be more cautious.
That's fine. And I guess the point I'm making, though, is when you say, okay, these are the reasons that I'm against it, and it's because of uncertainty going forward with revenue that's coming to the state and expenses that we may have coming forward. It's not, though, about the timing. It's about the fact that you disagree with eliminating the income tax, period.
I think there are different reasons to vote no on the bill.
But those reasons change whether it's this year or last year or next year.
Well, I'd still like to see what anybody's going to do with replacing a third of the revenue. I'd love to hear you ask people on your show every morning, what are you going to cut? What are you going to cut to make up? And I have yet to hear.
Well, now, hold on. That actually is a reasonable question, and that's one that I've asked because everybody has talked about, okay, we're going to eliminate the income tax, and we have not had a significant conversation about what is going to be cut that would help with.
They won't answer the question.
So what would you cut? What would you cut?
They won't say what they're going to cut.
What would you suggest we cut?
I voted no. Listen, what I would do, you could send more money to highways. You could spend more money to every single city and county in this state for water, roads, and bridges, and have more money for the state budget if you did nothing. I mean, that's what we should do. We have every city and county in the state. I have a rural volunteer fire department in South Adams County that needs a new fire station. And everybody up that capital has situations like that. And they come to this capital asking for money because 72 of the 82 counties in this state are losing people. And they come to Jackson to ask for help. And that's what we should do with that money instead of eliminating the income tax, which for most people would save them a couple $100 a year.
Senator Blount, let me ask you this. You work in as your full-time job, you work in the commercial real estate space. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So why is state government different than private business? And I'm thinking about the commercial real estate space. So if you're looking at a deal as an investor or as a developer, you analyze the deal, you figure out what the risk is, and then you decide whether or not you're willing to take the risk. But generally speaking, if you're going to do a development or you're starting a project, you got to take a risk to be able to be successful in business. Why is state government so different than private business?
Because state government performs functions that no other business or competitor can do. No other entity is going to go out and fix water system or sewer systems. No other body's going to get in that business. It's funded by taxes. State government is going to be here in 200 years, and as long as the United States is a country, we're going to have state government. Businesses may change, businesses may be sold, businesses may fail. Government is different, and government does functions that the private sector cannot do: water, sewer, roads, bridges, fire protection. That's what we ought to be doing instead of eliminating the income tax.
But if you're going to be successful in anything, you have to take calculated risks along the way, don't you? And we want to see, I think you and I can certainly agree, we want to see the state of Mississippi be successful. We want to see the economy continue to grow. We want to see business continue to come to the state. Don't you have to take some calculated risks to allow those things to continue to happen?
Again, I go back to the question of timing. To me, eliminating a third of your budget.
But you said it's not about timing.
This is more risk than we should take on. This is reckless. It is reckless to eliminate a third of your budget, given the uncertainty that we've discussed, and just hope that you're going to grow and meet the needs that you have to meet as a state. The cities and counties that we all represent come here needing help for essential public infrastructure projects. And when the state budget is reduced by this amount, they're not going to get any help.
I am fascinated. I was talking to my wife this last night about this. One of the things that I'm committed to doing with this show is hearing viewpoints that are different than mine and viewpoints that are different than many of the listeners and the texters on this show. I mean, this is largely a conservative audience. But I am genuinely curious how people can educated people can look at the exact same issue. And I can say, okay, it's pretty clear this makes sense. And somebody coming from a different viewpoint can look at the exact same issue and be on the complete opposite side of that. And I just feel like there are a lot of educated people that are in the legislature, some even in your party. I know there was some frustration that there were some Democrats that came over, and ultimately this amended bill passed in the Senate because of the 4 Democrat votes that came along with it. How is it that people, even in your party, are looking at the exact same issue and they are on a 180-degree opposite viewpoint than yours?
Well, there were more Republicans who didn't vote for the bill than Democrats who did. You had 4 Republicans who voted no and 3 who did not vote for it. So there are concerns among the Republican side. Look, I know this is mostly a conservative audience. I've been on the show, but I'm happy to come on the show because I believe there are a lot of people who are conservative, who represented by Republicans in the legislature that are a little nervous about this. And I talk to my Republican colleagues. We have a good relationship and we disagree on things. But I think if you talk to them privately, if they talk to their constituents back home, they know what we're talking about here with regard to federal spending and the issues we discussed. I believe that there are a lot of conservative Republicans out there who want to limit the income tax, but I think there are a lot that are nervous about it, who understand the risk involved with eliminating a third of your budget. And I think that the more cautious approach is what we should do in the next 2 weeks.
Quickly before we run out of time, and if you've got time, I might hold you over for the last segment. I really want to get to mobile sports betting, a couple of questions on that with you as well before we run out.
Well, I'm happy to do that. I would also like to raise the PERS question, which I know is part of this debate.
To do what now?
PERS, the retirement system.
And that's where I wanted to go before the break. So PERS is another component of this amended bill. A lot of conversation. Senator Sparks put together largely the Tier 5 proposal that's in that. There was a great deal of debate. We know that anytime the phrase PERS, the acronym PERS comes up, people immediately have the hair on the back of their neck stand up. And people who are in the PERS system are concerned about its stability. We also recognize that there is a significant liability that's out there for PERS in the neighborhood of $26 billion. How big of a concern is the PERS piece of this for why you voted against it?
It's huge. I want to say first to everybody, and I agree with Senator Sparks on this, and I think I can speak for everybody in the legislature when I say this. We all know that we have a contractual obligation to our retirees and people who are in the system today, and nobody is talking about breaking that obligation. So no one should change their plans because they're scared about that. Secondly, we all know that this is going to cost. We all agree that we all know we need a 5th tier. I disagree with Senator Sparks on what that tier ought to look like, but we need a new tier. But that is for people who have not been hired yet.
Hold that thought. We'll pick it up on the other side of the break. We're visiting with Senator David Blount, represents District 29 in the Mississippi Senate. We will take a quick time out. We'll wrap up the hour with Senator Blount when we come back with you. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Senator David Blount is my guest. We were talking about the PERS piece of the Senate amendment, which passed 32-16 on Tuesday of this week, and want to pick that up. I think, Senator Blount, the last thing you said before the break was that there's no question the state is liable for and is committed to funding PERS as it exists for every member of the PERS community right now. But there do have to be some changes going forward. I think you said the disagreement that you have with Senator Sparks is what that Tier 5 system should look like as we move forward. Is that a fair summation?
That's right. And we can get into that. But I would say whatever happens with Tier 5, whatever that program looks like, the benefits of that won't be seen for decades. This is the big picture, and this is why linking these two issues is so important. Everyone knows that to fix PERS, it's not just going to take a fifth tier, it's going to take more money, significantly more money over a period of time. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from the state budget. There's just this incredible disconnect to me where the session is about we're in the best financial shape we've ever been in. We're going to cut the state budget by 1/3. We're going to eliminate more than $2 billion of income tax every year. And we have a problem at PERS and it's going to require significant money to fix it. What we ought to do before we cut taxes and eliminate 1/3 of the state general fund budget is fix PERS. It's funded at 56%. It has a $26 billion unfunded liability. And what do these folks want to do? They want to pass a more than $2 billion tax cut. It doesn't make any sense. We have this debt. We have this obligation. We know we're going to pay it. We should make sure the system is in a stronger financial position than it is before we cut taxes. And the only way to do that is with money from the state budget. That's what we should do.
So the only pushback that I would give on that is everybody talks about this $26 billion liability that's out there. The problem that I have with that characterization is it's not a $26 billion liability that's all due at once. We don't have to come up with that money tomorrow. It can happen incrementally over time. So why can't you do more than one thing at once? Why is it we have to divert all of the excess revenue to PERS and fixing that before we do anything that provides relief for Mississippians through tax breaks? Why not have that as a budget item, understand that it's something that has to be paid, has to be taken care of over time, and do both at the same time?
Because like any other debt you owe, like any debt you might owe in your personal household, the longer you wait to address it, the longer you spread out the money that is required to address it, the more it's going to cost. And we should attack it now because it's a debt. We should not cut taxes. We should move as quickly as possible to get the PERS system funded back up above 80%. And we could do that much faster and in the long run much cheaper to the state if we don't cut taxes.
Got to ask you about this before we finish up. We've had a bunch of texts asking about mobile sports betting and why it is that that's not going to the Senate floor for a vote. We know that the House is for it. The Senate has been less so. You're the chair of the gaming committee. Why are you against mobile sports betting?
Well, what we've always done is ask the people who are in this business, who employ either directly or indirectly between 20 and 30,000 Mississippians, and have been in the gambling business in Mississippi for more than 30 years, what their position on it is and how it would affect jobs in Mississippi. My interest in gaming is jobs and people who go to work and support their families in this business. There are 14 ownership groups in the casino business in Mississippi. 7 of them are for it, 7 of them are against it. 7 of them think it'll be good for their business, 7 think it'll be bad for their business. And so my interest is economic development, tourism, particularly on the Gulf Coast, which is a destination economy, restoring the tuna market. My interest is in what it will do to jobs in working Mississippi, and we're getting conflicting signals from the people who are in this business.
But what about what the people of Mississippi want? Who, and this is anecdotal. I mean, I don't know that we've got necessarily a firm, this is what 61% of the people want, this is what 39% of the people want. But anecdotally, people want the opportunity to place a bet. there are a lot of people that are doing it illegally. Why not legalize it and collect the tax revenue on that?
Well, the Senate passed a strong bill drafted with the support of the Gaming Commission. I think you had Mr. McDaniel on your show to give them the tools that they are asking for to crack down on illegal internet betting.
But illegal betting has been going on for 150 years, and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah, but here's the difference. You could go down to the corner book and you could bet on the Ole Miss Alabama game or who's going to cover the spread. What I hear is increasing concerns from parents and other people about having a bookie in your phone, in your pocket, and not just, and this is an important difference, not just to bet on who's going to win the game or who's going to cover the spread, but on an infinite number of multiple bets and multiple propositions and parlays and combinations. They don't make money on who you bet on to win the game. They make money on lots and lots of bets that happen in the game in an infinite number of combinations. And because of that, it is more addictive and more risky.
Senator Blount, we're out of time. I appreciate your time this morning, and let's talk again soon.
Happy to be on the show.